Hello, welcome back. Hi. How's everyone doing? Good? Good? Alright, so unfortunately I did have to end the stream earlier a little bit fast, so I decided we were gonna try and come back really fast and try and stream again today. Hopefully the music's not too loud. I can't really check right now. But yeah, we're just gonna be doing the same thing we were earlier, and the VODs will be posted on YouTube, just connected to my Twitch account if you would like to look at it. So how's everyone doing today? Because I'm doing pretty well, and I hope you guys are doing pretty well. Alright. 1 second, I'm drinking coffee too while we stream. Yeah, we'll start now. Is it working? Is it working? Be surprised if it is. Ooh. Oh god, it's not. Why? There we go. It's working, guys. Hi, welcome back. I still don't know what we're doing. But we're on this island now. The only thing that has been done is, oh, the tree grew. I put torches everywhere because for some reason I thought it would turn night while I was waiting for everyone just for the notification to go out. So who knows? I just didn't want mobs to spawn and kill me while I was online. So earlier we were just kind of looking around, kind of seeing if there's anything we can do to like get us a little further than some other people. Who exactly? I have no idea. Talk to the bartender. Where's the bartender? There's a bar? I didn't know there was a bar. I'm not old enough to drink. I'm a minor. What the fuck? Where is he? Oh wait, no, the bartender's... Yeah, I know where he is. I know Minecraft. Thankful I am. Area dangerous reward. Coins! I still want to see if I can kill some. Because I'm very bad at them. Why are there all just some... Why are none of them, like, full health? Well, that's convenient for me, but still. I'm not very good at combat, so... I don't know. Talk to George the pet collector. My axe kills better than my sword. Jeez, of course it does. We're gonna run away before we die. Who's George? Why is he collecting people's pets? I guess we'll never know. Blah blah blah. Who's assailant? Ah. I think I'm funny. I'm stuck. Oh, there it is. There's like one part, I don't remember where it is, but one part on this map, you literally cannot touch just because you cannot get out. There's no, without ender pearls or like a little not zip line. The grappling hook, it's really hard to get out of unless you can block glitch. But we know how well people like that. Acquire distinguished attire. That rhymes. Looking. Holy shit. Dude, I can't afford any of that. Is that a rock? Let's see, what was I doing? I was to talk to George the pet. Who's George? Why is he collecting people's pets? Oh, he's, is he up here? Yes. I'm George, pet collector. Rarest pets I can find. Pets, new home, buy them from you. Dr. Cat, the Pepsi, the blah blah blah, Deb's pet holder. Cat, sitter, busy adventuring, take care of pets. Stronger. Carpenter. There's a carpenter. Where's the carpenter? Oh, I should pay attention to my screen. I'm actually doing stuff on. Where am I? Here. This looks like a carpenter's house. I was right. No. I would not like to, where's, what? I don't even have that open yet, I don't think. Recipe book. That's not what I wanted. I wanted quest log. Timber. Farmer. There's a farmer. Where's the farmer? Let's find the farmer. This is gonna be fun. Wow. Where's the farmer? Who's Arthur? Hello, Arthur. Arthur sounds like a nice person. Farmer. Shit, cow. Food. Moo. Moo. My wheat, mine. Not me. I hope my music's not copyright because I don't actually know. I'm just hoping it is. Oh wait, it's video game music. Why wouldn't it be copyright? Why would it be copyright? Sorry. Oh. Farm suit. Do you want to hear a very poorly explained long joke? Because you are going to anyways. This guy was wearing a button-up with corn on it. His girlfriend looks at him and says, "What are you wearing?" And he looks back and says, "My crop top." Best joke ever. Oh my god. Great day to be on the farm. I'm gonna sell this all later. Do I have any more good dad jokes that I can think of off the top of my head? Not the bestest dad jokes now. Oh, I do have one. It's more of a story, though. Oh, sorry. Wrong person. I've seen all the ages of the world. What? Village affinity tax limit Village affinity talisman. I don't know what that is. That's what wait. Yeah, talisman. Okay. Slime ball? Why would I buy rotten flesh from you when I'm already getting murdered by zombies? I'm gonna go and see if I can find some armor. But can I buy armor? I can buy armor. I just can't use the... Bazaar. Are you a mine merchant? Ores, miner shop. I need armor, starter gear, Rosadia. Sure, I just want half of it though, because I don't like the way you're being mean to me. Combat's to level 9, unbreakable. With enough combat skill, soon I'll be able to enchant my sword. That's gonna be fun. Wee, let's go and try and get some. Are there more? What's down here? Are there more? What? I still don't know what this is. This is kind of creepy though. I haven't played in so long by myself. I don't know where stuff quite is now because I keep changing. What is this? That's weird because he keeps changing it on me. This isn't a bad thing, but confuses ya. Zombo bomb. Ah. Mathematically, it's easier when I'm short. Do they not attack you while you're crouching? I should get a bow. This would be so much easier. I still think hunting with a bow is easier, especially mobs, because I'm good at shooting bows. Mobs, like, ugh. I don't like them. They're not my favorite thing. What is my favorite thing? Being an idiot. What is this? Drax. You sound like a wuss. Prove to me. No. No, I'll just leave then. Oh, I need like... I need to go and get more XP. I need to just put like sharpness or something on my sword. My sword. It's so nice. Just have sharpness on it. Dun 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 dun. And we go... Caller Bummer! Ah! I hate the zombie villagers. They're the reasons I need a bow. These zombies are broken, man. Dun, 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 dun. Dun. I really hope you guys can hear the music, or this is gonna be really weird. Cause yawns. I get distracted very, very easily. Which one does more damage? My axe does, but we have to be normal people and use a sword. 10? Is there anyone that's 5? Looting. Telekinesis. You know what? Close enough. At least I won't have to fight. Then run and get my stuff. I wonder who's streaming right now, like for big streamers, because I have no idea. I just kind of started without looking. I'm gonna look really quick. Sorry. I only have one monitor. Yeah. There's not really anyone streaming. That's nice. No, there's, God. No one's streaming. That's okay. What was I try to look at? Ow, my foot. Sorry, I just kicked something. Do I know what it was? No. How would I know that? It's kind of weird. Purposely kicking stuff. Wow. I don't know what to talk about. I had a good day. Yeah. I wonder how long it took to make some of these builds, because holy shit. Sometimes building my house takes a long time. This would take forever. Do they have, like, multiple people who build them? Or, like, is it just, like, random people? Or, I would assume it's not random people who make the builds. Like, it's a group of people who know how to build, like, nicely. But who knows? Like, Gotta say, they are really nice builds. I like the art. I like the ambiance of it. Which way is up? Probably that way. I'm gonna be honest. Ah. Are there any mobs in this one? No, the mobs are in the next one over. Where there's gold. Gold. Oh, wow. Who knows, guys? Who knows? Let me go pop. Spring 4th is my resting day. Talk to you. Ingots and stones. Do I have 100 coins on me? Yes, I do. Sure, kind sir. But, I'm leaving that to you. Oh. Why can't I drop it? That's baloney. I can't even press that button. Disable this in settings. Settings. Don't know where that is. That's the perla torch. Huh. What if we just go? What the? That's mean. Why are we mining? No, I wanted to fight mobs. That's what we were doing. Mobs gives more XP. But I hate zombies because zombies are little twinks. Can I say that? I can say what yeah, I'm gonna say that. They're mean to me. Drops your chance of getting multiple ores. Okay. Oh god. I forgot how painful some of the beginning stuff was in Hypixel Skyblock. We could try and slow run Minecraft after like another half hour of this just being annoying, if you guys want. I say slow run because I suck at Minecraft and also I die a lot. And I'm going to be honest, we'll probably end up making like a little house or something instead. Or we could just start a little new world I can make little builds and stuff on we can play. Should be pretty nice. I have a bunch of cool seeds saved on my phone from Minecraft Worlds we could try and use. Yeah, that'd be pretty fun. Cat. Oh, coal. Coal. Have I also been mining coal? Or, iron? I already got iron, haven't I? Yeah. Yeah, thinking of that, we could start a new world. I don't have any active worlds for YouTube or Twitch right now because I died in my hardcore one yesterday which sucks, but you can watch me fall off the edge of my hardcore skyblock on youtube.com, because why not? It's always fun. Who knows? Oh, we already got it. Where am I? Can I just like go like this and go? No, I can't. Oh, yes, I can. I could probably run up to the top before I teleport or even get the thing to work, because my account's cursed for some reason. Watch me get banned. That'd be really funny. Not really, but it would be really funny. Go womp. Wee! Ah! Oh my god, we got over to the deep caverns. Playing on blueberry. Someone got killed. Oh shit. Sick Vapor was killed by Emerald. Oh, nice. I need to stop reading people's usernames out loud when... Hey, father! Don't fall down the shaft. Can I... Oh, hello. Sorry, my phone's ringing and I don't want to pick it up on stream. No, we're texting them. We're gonna text them. Watch me blow up. Yep, called it. Right. Where is my text? What if I just Snapchat them like, hey, I'm streaming? Whoops. It's kind of awkward. I don't know what to do when people call me ever. It's gonna be really weird. Send that to him. And it sounds urgent, so I will be back in 1 second. We are just gonna quickly mute myself, and then I'm gonna go back to the starting soon screen, because I don't actually have a whatchamacallit, be back right back screen. Alright, I'm back. Sorry about that. That was a work thing. I just got some really good news. So, I'm excited. But also... I'm unmuted, right? Okay. Sorry, I just got, news from work. I just got called by one of my lovely peoples. So, I'm really excited about what I just got told. Can I tell you guys? Probably. None of you know who I am. Well, actually. Am I allowed to talk about that stuff? I don't know. I'm just gonna speedrun through everything and hope I don't die. Pigman Den. Dude, that's my favorite place. Oh, fuck zombies. I just got told one of the people who absolutely despises me at work. I mean, I don't know the cause of why she hated me, but she apparently just quit, so that's interesting. I'm really happy about it. I probably shouldn't be, though. But do I care? No. That's awesome. I love it. Oh, the pigment looks so cute. Dude, can I keep one? I'm gonna put it in my pocket and bring it around my house. It's be like a little pet dog. Except it's fucking adorable. How do I get down to the slime den? I forget. What's this? There's a ladder. Oh, fuck. I'm assuming... Oh. Let me add it. Let me add it. I hear the slimes. Where are they? Give them to me. Give me the slimes. Ah. Don't kill me, please. I'm very meek and stupid. Is this it? Is it? It is. Oh, yeah. Bounce, bounce, bounce. Dude, I spend like half my time XP grinding in Slime Den, I'm going to be honest. I just think it's fun. Being tossed around like... They have like infinite knockback and it's hilarious. Oh, I died. Why do people keep texting me? Ah! I feel bad when I don't respond. I'm so sorry, guys. You guys have to wait. Jeez. What was I doing? Collect redstone dust? Wait, can I use the McElevator now? I'm gonna just throw out a bunch of stuff that I don't need. That's going to kill me. Where is settings? And profile, double tap to drop. Ah! Dude, someone got a rainbow run? Does that mean that... Okay. I support it. I love it. I will give you a potato for it, because... Who wouldn't want a lovely potato? I feel like I'm gonna accidentally... Ooh. Do I have to have an open hand? I do, don't I? Reach Slime Hill. I already reached Slime Hill. Where was it? We're just gonna go like this. This is gonna be a little bit loud for now. That's going to be annoying. But who doesn't love a nice camp? A nice slime rock camp. I don't know what to talk about again. Do you like rocks? I like rocks. There's a lot of type of rocks. Yesterday, I thought I found a jawbreaker. Turns out, the rock was not nice to try and eat. Tasted horrible. You think I could like Walter? You look like some weirdo I know. I'm just kidding. I have no idea. Noise. What are revenant zombies? I don't know what they are and they sound horrifying. We bounce. What am I doing? A lot, apparently. Where'd you go? I burp when I throw stuff. I hate that. That is horrible. That's what it sounded like to me. Just I have music on, right? Okay, I do. Sorry, sometimes I panic when I don't hear stuff that I'm supposed to. I'm playing on Profile Blueberry. Oh, I've also noticed something really weird rewatching some of my old videos and some of my TikToks. Is when I get really either excited or I start talking fast, I gain an accent. I don't normally have an accent. Or if I do, I don't know about it. For the people who randomly are like, wait, are you British? I'm not British. I'm just talking really fast sometimes. Because it just happens. I don't know why. I don't know how. And I don't know how to stop it. It's probably a random piece of information you don't care about. Ah! God, I'm sitting like a cashew. God, it feels like it. The fuck? Just go womp. Womp. How many... If I grab all of my stuff, do you think I can just keep feeding it? I think we should build a little... Wait, where's that one chest that's sitting on the island? We're gonna make a cobblestone generator, just because I like the aesthetic of them. Except I don't know how to make one, and... Last time I did, I ended up... Or tried to. I ended up with obsidian. Okay, for my island, we're gonna plan some stuff out really quickly. For my island, I want there to be a really nice, fancy bridge right here. With a little, like... And I want the islands to spring in like rings to look like random stuff. Alright? Now, my plan is I want to put cobblestone generator like over here and then build like a tiny little house over here with a bench overlooking the void. And run back over here. Down here, I want to put my enchanting area for aesthetic purposes, and then I want to hide one that actually has just all of everything we will ever need. And why I have two, will you ask? Overkill, that's why. No, wait, I want to make a circle for my, I'll need a lot of wood for that. I need... What's my favorite type of wood? We're gonna use oak and, spruce. I have... Whoa. Was not... I need... Do I have more torches? I do. We're gonna put one over here and... Get off, bitch. Eh. Eh! Get off! Perish! You fool! Perish, you mortal disaster. Who are you? Who keeps texting me? It's driving me crazy. Oh, never mind. They're awesome. They have an excuse. Sorry again. Sorry. I'm very annoying. I'm really sorry about that. Ah! Caw. Oh. Why do I keep yawning, and it's starting to annoy me a lot. I still don't know why apples are coming out of the tree trunks. That's not a Minecraft thing. That must be a Hypixel thing then. I kind of want to play Build Battle Live in a bit, but also last time I played Build Battle, someone made a very accurate reconstruction of 9/11 for a sushi theme. So I don't quite trust people enough to do that kind of thing. God, I was recording too that day. It was not a good day. My plan is to stay on Hypixel for at least another 20 minutes, and then I might change the stream title and we might start a new survival world. Don't know if it'll be hardcore yet, but you know what? Fuck it. We're making a hardcore world. Hardcore world. I lost my last one. I'm gonna have a little series about my dead hardcore world, so might as well add to the series. It already has like a bunch. I'm just kidding. I want to keep a tree like right there. I want a big one there. So we're gonna, and that's because I want to put a little bench like here with a jukebox looking there. But I don't know if we can have music in Hypixel, like music discs. I wouldn't even know what music disc to put in there, really. I'm going to be honest. No, I need this, and I need this. The one good thing skeletons give me is... The one good thing skeletons give me is bone meal. Good bone meal. We were, you know how people arm wrestle, like thumb wrestle and stuff? Well, there's something in the wee little place that I live called leg wrestling, where you like put your shoulders together. Well, two people are facing opposite directions, lay down on the floor with their shoulders together, like link their arms and take their one leg and lift it up twice, and then try and flip the third time they wrap it around the other person's leg and try and flip them over. We were doing that yesterday at my my boyfriend's house, and I got flipped over and I cracked like my entire neck, and it, oh, they kind of hooded. I want to see where my chat box is because I don't actually know. So we're gonna type something in chat, which is hi chat, hi chat. Where is it? Oh wait, I forgot to add one. Whoops. Oh, I used I have two computers going right now because I don't have a working second monitor yet. So that's my friend's account I'm currently using to mod my streams. Whoops. Fuck that. You know what? 15 minutes. Let's find something to do randomly on Hypixel for 15 minutes. I don't really know what to do because my favorite thing is Grinch Simulator, and they don't have that. That's not this time of year. How's the pit? Where's the pit? The pit is my second favorite one. Murder mystery. Where's pit? Where's the pit? the pit. There we go. Dude. I can't play the pit because I'm not a... I have a Microsoft account. Let me join the pit. Oh, you... We're playing TNT Run because this game is sexist. I'm just kidding. It's not sexist. It's just annoying. Because I can't confirm it. Because I can't use my chat. Wow. I should probably change the title before. We're just gonna go like this. Can I change the title of my second account? I cannot. This is an interesting issue. It's not. It really isn't. Edit stream info. We're just still gonna call it Hypixel stream. We're gonna do TNT Run and I know I'm geeky. TNT Run and Fun because we need to sound nerdy. Why? What the fuck was that? What? Did I hear Brian? Oh, hello. Where's TNT Run? TNT Run is my favorite, one of my favorite games. Why is it so small? Oh, we're in a small game room. Oh, no. Oh, no, I'm not this good. I'm not that good at this game. 24 people in a tiny area. Dude, it looks like we block jumping, man. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh, this is a big one, man. Wow. Oh wait, no. Oh, that's the end of the world. I haven't played this in so long. Oh no. Wow. I fell off. I'm amazing at this game. This is going great. So, oh. I've always wanted to make my own TNT Run world, just for my friends to, like, I know how to make one, I just procrastinate building. Building one? Like, fully building a TNT Run. Like, I've started a creative world full of ideas of stuff I could make into a TNT Run. Play again. We're not waiting for these people. They're kind of weak. Wait, what's over here? Oh, is this is you? Oh my god! Wow. I think we should go that way. Or just turn around and walk separately from everyone else. Why are people trying to cut me off? Oh, it's because I'm too hot. That's why. I think I just sealed the exit for everyone, so. Oh, shit. Wow. This is... Oh, wait, there's a whole area I can have to myself right now. This is nice. These players are still kind of mean to me, but... Hey, what you gonna do about it? Nothing. All you can do is kind of... etch out an entire area. So people can't walk there, and it's your area to run in until you perish. Dun, 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 dun. Am I gonna win for the pure fact of I'm over here by myself? If I do, I'm gonna be surprised. Yeah, it is for the pure reason I'm over here by myself. I got pretty far. Let's be honest. 4? Wow. 4 players. That's pretty good. 4 players, and I etched most of the one out myself. Which one? That one. That one was all me. This is mine. There's someone else here. No fair. Can I? Who are you and why did you take my land? Actually, I don't care. Play again. I had the left click. How sneak. What was that? I would not like to do that again. That sounds horrid. Who's creator the Tyler? Why is... What? This chat is confusing me. This is more interesting than me trying to figure out what to do on hypixel.skyblock.net. You know, fuck you. I'm cutting you off because you cut me off. How dare you do this mean thing back to me? Who? We're making a line. I'm not good at parkour. Please don't make me parkour, dude. Dude, please stop. Fuck you, I'm claiming this area. This is mine. Either people in this game are really good at doing what they do, or it has a lot of layers. And I think it's the second one. Oh shit. And we're now on the bottom layer. How terrifying. Oh my god. Oh shit. I tried. That's all we need to do is try. You can never always win. And if you do always win, and you say you do always win, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Can I? Oh, I can't punch. I was like, can I escape? I would like to go into the out now. Please and thank you. We'll just do a few more runs than this, and then we're... Oh, whoa. Sorry. I burped and it felt weird. We're going to do a little bit more of this, and then we'll switch over to a, whatchamacallit, a survival world, and we'll start one of those. My stream name never updated, did it? It's not showing me that it updated. I'm looking at my second monitor like, what? What? What do you mean I'm... Oh, maybe I didn't refresh the page. We'll do that after this round's over. Oh, that was close. Man. Oh, we're gone. Restart my refresh. There's a problem with only having one computer, but needing 2 monitors. Wow. Oh, can't do anything about it. And play again. Da 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 da. This is what I like to do on my, what day is it? Is it, what, is it Monday or Tuesday? This is what I like to do on my someday afternoons. Some days. And we just go, wee, wee. Where, there's people behind me. Why people? Oh god. I would say I'm good at this game, but I would be lying to you. I would be lying to you. And I'm that type of person. I'm extremely good at this game, guys. Oh my god. I've never died before. It's great. Go whoop. Oh god. How many? I wonder how many layers this has. It has 2 more layers. I think. Yeah, 2 more layers. Nope, 3 more layers maybe. I don't know. I can't see that far. Oh, yeah, 2 more layers. Okay, I can definitely see now. Jump. Oh god. I don't know who they are, but I like their skin. I like their Minecraft skin. Whee! I don't know how people last long. I'm going to be honest. I'm not good at this game. And, you know, that's okay. That's okay. You have fun, you can suck at whatever you want. I'm surprised we haven't got any ads yet, because we're playing music off YouTube. I do not have YouTube Premium or anything like that. But, yeah. Oh, I missed. Oh, well. I wonder how much. What? Ah. Where are we? I want to say, this place does also look really, really cool. Oh, it's a new map, wow. Or probably not a new map. I'm probably just not smart. I don't know, I haven't played in a while. Why don't I just keep my double jump open? Well, they also have a cool skin. Jeez. People who don't make their own Minecraft skins always have the coolest skins, and that's why I don't really have the best skin. But that's okay. That's okay. Ow. What if I try and just escape? It's like, eh. Like, eh. Oh. How do I use double jump? I don't even know. What if I, like, glitch through the wall and just run off? That'd be funny. It's like... That did not work. There wasn't a cooldown. I feel like you could make your way back to the top. You could probably make your way back to the top really fast if you had infinite double jump. Yeah. People are cutting me. Oh. People are cutting me off again. Oh well. It's like, ugh. My bones hurt, Jesus. Not even that old. That guy just didn't move and he just fell straight through. Dude, this map's also, why are all the maps really cool? It's distracting. Wow. Oh. Wait, are they all different colors? Oh, they are. That's... What was on that guy's head? It was rainbow. Wow. Dude. Where'd Rainbow Guy go? I wanna go and see his head again. That's really cool. Achievement unlocked, triathlon. What does that mean? I will never know. What's it? Wait, isn't triathlon like a running thing? Like a race? Nice. Oh, whoops, misclick. When in doubt, annoy other people because why not? What? Did that guy just fly? Oh, bow, and I'm gone. Wow. Watchdog has been... Watchdog banned me once, and I still don't trust it. I wasn't even cheating. Jeez. What? What? Oh, yeah. I think we can do one or two more rounds of TNT run, and then we're gonna go and make our new survival hardcore world. Probably. Let's get distracted again, because I said that like 20 minutes ago. But who knows? Who knows? Wee. What? He has potions? What? Where'd that guy get potions? Did he get potions? I've never seen potions in TNT Run. That's... Oh. Wow. Huh. I need to pay more attention to maybe not dying. That would be a good thing to try not to do. Oh, this is really fun. Oh, someone named you Pretty Smile. That's actually cute. Someone's Purple Guy. What? Purple Guy, did you get once more? A couple more children for your little party? It's kind of creepy, dude. Kind of creepy. Kind of creepy you're still running up children in Minecraft now. A whole new level of weird, man. The game has started. What game? Uno? I'm good at Uno. I secretly eat the cards and then hide them under the table. They can't prove it if they can't find the cards. You're not cheating if you eat the cards, because the cards are... Oh. How? What? Where was the rest of the floor? Wait. What? What is this? Did someone already clear the entire floor? No, wait, no. Oh, it's made like that. Okay. Was that one or two games? That was 2 games. We're gonna make a single player, a Hardcore world. What are we calling this one? We're gonna call it that. There we go. Boop. Oh, just cracked my back again. Ugh. This is fun. I gotta make it load, because God knows how long it's been since I've actually made it. That's a good spawn. Is there anything else nearby that's pretty cool? Anything else? Okay. I should have learned how to speedrun. Because if I was speedrunning, someone would tell me I'm cheating. Oh, there's no chest. I'll come back later for the... There is a chest. Can I... Is there anything good? I got the arsonist starter kit. Oh my god. This is one of the best spawns I've ever gotten. Ever. Wow. Gotta diggy some trees. Dig, dig, dig. Or I could set them on fire. Ah, never. We're not gonna set them on fire. You know, wait. We're off Hypixel. It means we can have, no, not those ones. We can have shaders on without getting murdered. No, not those ones, not those ones. Those ones will crash my computer. Why is there just a random mod name on my screen? Oh, that's my chat. Okay, there we go. There we go. Now it's all nice for us. Wow, look at the sun rays. Something I missed playing TNT Run, because definitely does not blind you. Will this drop? I want to see if this drops cooked food. I'm so sorry. I'll look away for you guys. I'll stand behind a tree. It didn't work. Where'd he go? It does not drop. It makes them not drop stuff. Oh! The sword has fire aspect. I didn't know that. Well, that cooks your food for you. Oh, that's lovely. Start trying to get out. Start trying to get enchants on my stuff now. I knew that. Oh, now we cannot. Well, now we have enough leather to make boots. Whoop. Oh, we can also make a pickaxe. Tree axe. Or you know what? Let's make a pickaxe first. I'm not struggling to talk today. It's not me. Would never do that. Oh, there's a... Oh yeah, the village. Forgot there was a village here. Forgot there was a village. Whoopsie. I'm gonna keep the fireball charge in my inventory so I don't accidentally explode myself. Ooh. And this mine. What else can we steal? That man looks like a hippie. He looks like a hippie. Dude, hippies are so nice, except God, when was it? A couple days ago, I met a not nice hippie. It was not nice. Meat. I will need this for later. No. We do this. Now, I've got a nice little organized hotbar. Did they just print? I'll come back for the weed. I'm stealing this first, actually. Mine. What's in here? Who are you? I'm from ancient Greece. Who are you? What's over here? More houses. What is this? This is a house. Oh, that's a manger. Dun 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 dun. Ba ba da ba 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 ba. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Oh, this is nice. I don't think we'll have to worry about food. We will have to worry about house soon. I'll just steal a bed and sleep in the manger or something. Who knows? If I set a sheep on fire, will it still drop the wool? It will, okay. That's fine. I don't like having to deal with mobs. Mobs are my worst nightmare. That's a joke. I have worse. This is the most pointless house I've ever seen. And I've seen my builds. This is interesting. They got melon. 1 second. I'm a mature human. I am. Wow. We will definitely food checked off the list. We have food. We have. I think I'm gonna travel that way. I'm gonna steal a bed and travel that way. To try and find a nice place to call our own. To call our own little house. Where was there any beds at all? I haven't seen a bed yet. Oh, hello, Mr. Gollum. No bed in here. Why? All you guys have is water. Where do you guys just not sleep? Did I steal from that? Okay, I already stole from that already. What's down here? Nope, not doing that yet. Nuh-uh. No. I found a bed, finally. Mine now. Ooh. What? World generation is so amazing right now that sometimes it confuses me. This is a cool little nook, though. This is really weird. This is really weird, but really cool. Like most human beings. Why do I keep saying human beings? I don't know. Who does know why they do what they do? I just needed I decided to stream in the middle of just randomly, and I just need to find music, but this music makes me want to play Undertale again because it's the music from Undertale. I see way too many biomes at once, and I'm enjoying it. I can get all the wood the different types of wood I want. There's bees. The bees. My frames are dropping like fucking hotcakes. Jesus. What do you guys think we should build? Cause I'm thinking on the hill that's behind us, but also like making a little forest town be pretty cool. It's like, ah, wait, we should bring the roses to the bees so they're closer to the beehives. That's what prioritize. We're prioritizing the bees. I'll stay in a hole for the night or something, or a new pit tower. Where were the beehives? Bees. I bring you guys some flowers. There's another one. Where is it? No. It was over hither somewhere. I see the bees. Oh, there's a hive. You can tell who's my favorite child. I have a bed. Why would I need to hide from mobs? Because I can't go to sleep yet. That's why. That is not my fist. Whoops. Yep, let's save the bees and then set their forest on fire. We're gonna get some wood before we sleep the night away. Wow. Oh, and dirt. Bomb. I forgot how pretty the shaders make the sky at night. I would love nighttime in Minecraft, but I hate mobs. Yeah, I'm thinking we should build our house like up there. And then make a trench around the mountain for all the times I'm going to fall off it. Because we all know I'm a very smart person. I'm very good at falling down things too. I fell down my stairs the other day. I don't know why, but I did. Oh wait, we are building right there. We are building right there. Screw this mountain. Oh, this is so pretty. Oh my god, wow. Water. The water, what's the thing again? It's not a cavern. We could make an underwater, like, ravine. Underwater ravine little, like, builds for shits and giggles. Oh, that's really nice. Oh. Is that magma? Wow. This is really nice. Waterfall! Oh my god! Whee! Womp. What's that? Nope, not going down there yet. Nuh-uh, no way. I couldn't tell if that was a magma block or eyes. We are not doing that today. What is that? Or ever, probably. Let's be honest. We are building here. And my bed is going in this hole. Where I will probably lose it. God. 1 second. Where's my frames and stuff? Music and sounds? No. Controls? No. Video settings? There we are. Okay. I stabilized it a little bit, but I doubt it will stay like that for long. Oh, it feels like I'm playing Minecraft on my 2002 Windows computer. My Windows ThinkPad. I used to play Wizard 101 on all the time. This is what that feels like. We're gonna put all the things that look important in there. I still haven't made the gotten stone. We're gonna put our mine over here. We'll make a big like mine entrance later. That's convenient. That's very convenient. I feel like if I posted this on YouTube as a YouTube video, I'd get just a wave of comments. You cheated. You put that in there yourself. You world edited it. I can't figure out how to submit my assignments sometimes. Why do people think I can world edit Minecraft? That takes brain power, the one thing I do not have at all. God, it hasn't already been an hour and a half. Time, I'm declaring, time doesn't actually exist. It's made up by schools to make people's lives more of a living hell. Because that's all what schools do. Because facts are irrelevant when you don't care about them. That's a lot of coal. I think I hit one of the big coal things and I don't we'll just get all the stone we need and we'll come back later and dig out all the coal. Where did I put my bed's over here? I've already lost my bed. Oh no. It's almost like I thought that would happen already. I'm gonna go with my weird theme again of only building stuff in circles because that's what makes sense. In a block, in a world that's only squares. Besides, how hard could that be? How hard could it really be? Making an entire world of squares circular. Wow. We're gonna use stone and then we're gonna make it grass and we're gonna try and get shears and then put vines and stuff over it. I need blocks to win it, so it needs to be math. Okay, we need to do this first and go We're gonna steal this one back because oh shit. How do we get back up without using the oh. Whoops. Where's my dirt? Where's the way up? The way up's over here. Wow. Oh god. The FPS is just enough so you can keep doing stuff, but just low enough to make everything annoying. I'm gonna have to get a bunch of dirt and fill this in. Just go like this and then where's my Oh, that's close enough. That looks fine. I will need more slabs, though. 30 will be enough. 30 might be too much. We're gonna get rid of this one and put it over here, and then put that one there, and dig this one up, and we're gonna have to do a bunch of terraforming. Oh, this is gonna suck, man. Oh well. What can you do about it? Not really much, because we already started, and I don't like restarting stuff immediately after starting it, because I'm stubborn. I should get a stone pickaxe before I use up all my stone. A stone pickaxe, and what else did I need? An axe. Stone axe, and go boom. Why didn't I needed a shovel, not an axe. I'm losing my mind. Oh no. It's almost like I don't know how to finish that. I already lost my mind, man. Oh, wow. If I can get my FPS to stay at like 20, I will be fine. Okay, my computer's not getting hot yet, so. You can play whatever game on your computer as long as it doesn't burn the house down. That's what we always say. And then we just like blop 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 blop. And that one, and then bop. Bruh. Dude, I think some days a potato could run Minecraft better than my computer. A literal potato. I could probably make a potato that runs better than my computer. Probably. And just do this really quickly. Fine. Where'd I put my dirt? Oh, we never grabbed enough dirt. We're gonna steal some here. Looks too square. Just shove that under there for now. Sleep. I'm making some progress, actually. A surprising amount of progress, seeming that I'm amazing at hardcore. Seeming I accidentally ended a series yesterday because I died. Whoops. Who knew if you fell off a hardcore skyblock world, you would die? Not me, apparently. And then, fine. You know what? This isn't looking half bad. I think it looks pretty good, actually. I didn't actually expect it to look this good. I don't know if we can find spruce or dark oak. Do you think birch and birch planks and then jungle logs would look good together? Well, only way to test it is find out. Only the way to find out is test it. Wee. I think I literally just picked the two ugliest types of wood in their natural forms and said, yeah, you know what? Good enough. It's not a dirt shack. To be honest, I've seen people build amazing dirt huts. So, oh God. The other day I was just scrolling around and I saw this guy and he built a giant dirt house with like 40 stacks of dirt. It was like a giant mansion and it was wonderful, and I was like, content? Can I borrow? I ended up not because I'm lazy. I guess. Who knows? Who knows? Where'd my house go? Over here. We're bringing home bamboo because it's easier to farm than sticks. I should make a little bridge up from the water. Like a little dock bridge. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah. Put you right there. Alright. Not what I wanted. Where's my cobblestone? I don't know how to feel about it. We'll go adventuring a little bit, see if we can find any dark oak wood. But for now, it'll be fine. It'll work. It'll work. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, I'm gonna need. Oh god. 1 second. That's not it. I'm turning off the shaders. I'm really sorry. It's just because I really get annoyed when I can't run super fast with my normal amount of FPS. Wow, taking them off really said, we're giving you 150 FPS more. Wow, what a dream. What a dream. Who would know? Who would know that? Not me, clearly. Oops. I'll try and find some lighter shaders for the next stream so we can have shaders on and then not get murdered by FPS. I said I needed. You know what? We're gonna deal with this problem now. This is a lot of coal. At least we won't need to worry about not having coal for a while. I can light up the area. Even though I should have done that a while ago. You know, is that my favorite ore? It is. The one thing that's so painful to get and to oxidize, but looks amazing. Mine. Well, anything that's shiny is basically the best block, in my opinion. Shiny is not emerald ore. God. Does anyone remember, like, back in... God, when did Minecraft come out? Minecraft came out when I was, like, 7... That was... No. Yeah, like, 2012, 2013. When Minecraft came out. Remember back in, like, it was 2015 when people would be like, yeah, this is my all-survival world with no cheats, and it'd just be a house made of diamond and gold blocks, and you'd be like, dude... Your house is ugly, and they'd get so offended about it because they're like, no, it's worth a lot, and you'll be like, dude, that's an eyesore. And besides, half of it's cheated in. I was gonna give up on that piece and just leave it there. Leave it there in the little mine hole. God, 2015 was the best time. Way better than now, at least. People could just do what they wanted and no one gave a shit. Yeah, 2015 was really annoying, and there was a lot of people just being dicks for the sake of being dicks, but, like, Minecraft YouTube was at a high. Well, it is again, technically. It was good, good content. For the most part. less clickbaity than it is now, but also I can't speak. I do like a lot of the content that is how is now. So. There. Wow. That, for some reason, took way too long. It takes way too long to figure out how to do basic things in Minecraft because... who knows? Who knows? Oops. Oh well. Let's go find another pickaxe. I found more of my favorite ore. I need more sticks too. Oh, I'm gonna need to eat. Where's my food? I lost it. Food. Oh. No, need that. Meant to do this. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry, it's playing the wrong music, actually. So I'm hoping it wasn't copyrighted, because that's not the playlist I put on originally. This is an ad. Stop it, please. There we go. There we go. There's what I was looking for. What were they doing? I was looking... Pickaxe. There we go. Bomb. Pickaxe time. Whee! Ah. I'm gonna start forgetting which way's the up and down. I almost said left and right, like I already don't know which one's which. Jesus. Wait, this is perfect. I don't even have to steal dirt now. I can just use this dirt. This will be great for when we have to terraform the circle base. Let me make it like a little more accessible. Let's get down to. We'll just add a little bit here, so we can get down here too. We were looking for you know what? Dirt, cobblestone, potato. One's just less rocky than the other one. If you think about it, dirt and cobblestone are, oh, it's nighttime. Dirt and cobblestone are basically the same thing. Alright. If I run back fast enough, hopefully no mobs will spawn. We're gonna do this. No one saw anything. No one saw anything. At all. I never changed the title from TNT Run, did I? Oh no. 1 second. hardcore. And what should we call this stream? Starting new, because we just started this one. Starting anew. How you spelling new? Close enough. Oh, I'm gonna drop some of my stuff off. Oh, I needed a shovel. Shovel. We'll throw those in there for now, and then... And we'll just, like, get the rest of the dirt. And then, you know, let's build another circle. Another one of our corn circles. I'm just gonna start calling them corn circles. This is the corn circle base. It's made of corn circles because I don't care what bases are supposed to look like. I get a pick. It looks like corn circles because that's what I build in Skyblock, and I only know how to play Skyblock. I'm gonna have to expand this like one or two more blocks out. This, no, not that way. Yeah, this way. It's gonna be very uneven, and it's gonna look like a toadstool for a bit. You know what? That's okay. So it's gonna be 1, 2. And we're getting rid of this dirt here to tuck it in 1. For now, so we don't have our amazingly put together little dock down, because I haven't decided what it's gonna look like yet. It's just gonna stay like, what's that? It's just gonna stay like this. And I need a piece of dirt already. Mop. And I need another one. I know how to play Minecraft. Probably. I need more dirt. Good thing I have 2 stacks. 2 stacks of dirt on hand at all times. Oops. I was gonna say one or two more blocks up would look nice. Make that faster to get up. Oh, hello, tree. So, like, yeah. And then circle. We're gonna make a tiny circle this time. 1, 2, 3. And then it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks wide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then circle. Then we're gonna do it on this side first because this side still needs 1. And go 1, 2, 3, 4. Up. I fell off. I fell off my rockiness. My alien spaceship. 2. Wait, that's 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I got the wrong amount. Who knows? Probably even. It looks even. Do I have more cobblestone? I do. Wait, what if I do this and I actually get a good amount of there? That is not how circles look. What? Oh, I made this one not long enough. Wait, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Oh, I didn't make this one long enough, sorry. Where do I go on the ground and do this? Wait, I'm gonna recount them again. Or recounting them. Because math is hard. So 1, 2, 3. No, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the problem. Found it. There we go. And now we grab my very, very important thing. Does not matter. And now we need to put the bottom on. This is going great. This is going very, very swell for me. Ah! Again! Oh no, I built it wrong. Oh no, I just realized I built it wrong. This one... This is going to be the bottom layer. I'm gonna have to build the ring one more bigger than I thought I would have to. Because it's supposed to be like this and then have the block on top. But it's gonna look like that. Oh, and I have to go back down to get my block. Well, that's lovely. Nice. Actually, you know what? It should be bigger. This is where we're gonna put all of our stuff. This is gonna be a little makeshift storage area. And then just like, bloop. That did not work. I tried to make it look all fun, fancy. Dun, 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 dun. Ow. Bad. Dun, 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 bow. Dun, 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 dun. You know what? I'll just fix my mistakes later. Who needs to know how to fix stuff when they mess up? Not me, I don't mess up. And you know what? It looks fine. No, we can't put it there. I'll have to raise this part up more, which is fine. I thought this would take less than a stack of dirt. I'm going to be honest. Do I have more dirt? I do have more dirt. Or the long solution to my problem is mine the entire outer layer off and then put it up one. Which I think is what I'm gonna do. Because I feel like that's gonna be easier than me having to redesign it on the the fly. Because I'm not good at doing all the math and redesigning in my head. Even though I came up with this out of nowhere. This is lovely. I can just do this and then replace it because I have more slabs in my inventory though. No, wait, that can't be like that. It has to... I've run into a problem. How am I gonna fix it? Ignoring the problem. That's alright, I just have to shave some off this corner too then. In this corner. And sleep through the night, because who likes mobs? Mobs are stupid. Mobs are mean to me. They're mean to everyone. I just don't want to run into any Endermen, I'm gonna be honest. They like to steal my hardcore worlds, so not gonna do that. I'm starting to think I miscounted most of the circle anyways. I need to get rid of that part. Well, good thing we were doing it then, I guess. And in we go. Womp. Gotta get all of them. 14. That might not be enough, but we have to mine more off anyways, it'll be fine. And bump bump. Boop. I'm gonna grab some of these ones as we go, because it's easier to get up this way anyways. I don't know why that one's there though. I would have to really light up under these. That'll be fine though. I have to light it up anyways. Should get what are they called? Mushroom lights. The shroom lights, and put them underwater. And put them above ground with some carpet over them, and it'll be fine. But that doesn't mean we have to get to the nether eventually. The nether's a cool place, I just don't like it. Not safe for someone who's distractible like me. What's that? Egba! Run! Yeah. Is that a circle? Yes. That is a circle. I'm stuck. There we go. The one thing I've learned is if you're stuck, start honking like a goose. A Canadian goose to intimidate your enemies, because Canadian goose are the fucking most terrifying shit I've ever seen. You can't reason with them, they just want violence for no reason. Jeez. Oh. I now see why that was there. We're gonna have to also redo the bridge, so we're just gonna chop it all off right now. Well, this is going better than I thought it would. Building circles. Or somewhat circles. That's basically all of the bridge. Let's grab it. Got all of it. We'll go grab that a bit later. Okay, so I think what we need to do is we need to build it coming down. Descending. No. Oh, you know what? That looks pretty good. There we go. That's how you build a bridge. And then we go back down to make sure we didn't drop anything. No, not much. Yeah. You know what? I think next thing we'll build is the little bridge down. And then we'll work on the dock eventually. I think the bridge would just look nice because it would be very helpful. So we're just gonna like... all the cobblestones in my... We're gonna use stairs because I'm not that creative of a person. And we're just gonna do it the good old-fashioned way. Managed to get every stair but one facing right. Well. Then just bump. And put it all the way down. We'll do this. There we go. Like, there. We have a little bridge down now. My little strange base, but you know what? It may be strange, but it's my home. That's alright. We're gonna move everything onto the over here. Just so we can see it. See all of our things, because getting lost is probably not the biggest thing of our worries, especially when now you can see where we are. So now, just go and get everything back in your inventory. Not the inventory, the chest. Now grab everything else. I should start smelting my ores. I should have been doing that already. Whoops. Whoopsie. Oh well. Too late now. No, not there. Done. Okay. We gotta make it. There we go. Now everything's even in our little place of ours. I can't smelt in there. Put that back. I need coal. What are we smelting first? We're gonna smelt the only ore we have. Sorry, I'm searching. Yeah, 1 second. I think I'm gonna end the stream pretty soon. So if you guys have anyone you want me to raid, just like throw them in the chat and I'll check them out and we'll probably raid them. Because I don't really know anyone on Twitch yet. So yeah. I don't think the people I do know are streaming right now. So it's a I still don't know what day it is. What day is it? What day? Oh, let me check. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. I didn't know that. Yeah, 1 second. I'm gonna see if I know anyone who's on there. Probably not. I doubt it. Oh, ugh, my own stream popped up. I don't like hearing my own voice sometimes. It scares me. I don't know anyone at all. Wow, that's not surprising. Let's see if there's anyone who has fairly the same amount as us. Should change my language to English so we can get people who are also streaming in English. Most of you guys came from someone when I was on Hypixel. Do you want to go to a... Yeah, let's go to someone streaming Hypixel. Really quickly. I'm turning off the music for a second. I'm sorry. This guy looks nice. What's his name? That's not English. Whoops. Oh, God. Why isn't it letting me go back? Did I click the... Where am I? I'm turning my music back on. I don't see anyone that's streaming in English on Hypixel, but I have found it a modded, some nice modded streamers or something. Oh God, this guy looks nice. Yeah, let's read this guy. He seems really nice. We're rating this guy. So I'm just gonna quickly say thank you guys so much for coming. It's been really exciting because this is my first stream. So we're gonna send you over to MrCyroxMC. And you guys can go if you want. If not, hopefully I might see you again. Anyways, well, you guys have... I'll have a good day, night, or evening wherever you guys are in the world. And yeah. Bye! Bye! Bye, chat! turn the music back on for now.